What's going on, everybody? This is the first episode of the Caesar and Sloth Metal Podcast, where we're going to be talking about some new metal albums coming out that we've been enjoying. We'll be trying to do one of these in the middle of the month so that we can tell you about what came out in the first half of the month. And that will be primarily done by my co-host here, Neil.
Hello.
The Sloth in Caesar and Sloth. And as for what I will be talking about, every week I'm going to try to teach you guys about a band that maybe doesn't get as much attention as, somebody like Metallica or Iron Maiden. I'm not going to be covering big bands like that everybody's pretty familiar with. Like for this week, as you've seen in the title of the podcast, I'm going to be covering Broken Hope. And trying to show you guys, not just doing a discography run, but also, telling you about the band members and lineup changes and all the different styles of music that the band played. So, a little education on different bands, as well as trying to help you guys find some new stuff, hopefully. So, dual purpose podcast.
Yeah.
It's what makes us better than other podcasts and websites and stuff, we have more to offer.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as my co-host was saying here, we're gonna try to cover new stuff, and I guess I'm kind of primarily in the new stuff category. Although Justin's gonna chime in on his favorites as well that he's kind of come across, or maybe I've sent him, because I do that a lot.
Yeah, one of the albums I'll be talking about was actually sent to me by Neil, because he's kind of got his ear to the underground, if you will, and the new stuff a little more than I do.
This is what I do. So I guess I'm kind of a connoisseur of sorts. I don't have a lot of hard opinions on a lot of bands. I kind of just roll with the punches a lot. Like one of the bands I'm going to talk about this week for new releases just came out with an album last week, a band called Leprous. And they've changed their sound since their inception, and I'm not one of those people that kind of nostalgia, I suppose, on a sound for a band, unless they really change their sound and it's not maybe just the best. I don't know.
Unless they got a lot worse.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have opinions and stuff like that, but I'm not one to stay in the old, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So, yeah. Do you want to get right into the new stuff, or?
Yeah. So what has come out for the month of October that you liked? Because this is our end of October episode, so pretty much got the whole month to go through on this one. Kind of a special episode here.
Dude, October has been fucking ridiculous.
It's been loaded.
It's been the most busy month of this entire year. No shit. Just last Friday alone is enough to fill up an entire month of podcast, I think.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And I'm not even going to be able to cover all the things that came out last Friday because I haven't been able to really listen to it and have a very educated opinion. I could tell you maybe that it's good for the band sound or whatever, but I don't have a super in-depth opinion, a super nuanced feel of the album and that kind of stuff, except for the new Leprous and the new Alcest, which I'm both going to cover, and I really haven't been able to put either one of those albums down. So, yeah.
I have been enjoying that new Leprous since you sent it to me. And then I almost finished that Alcest, and I was really enjoying that as well. So,
hell yeah. Well, I guess we can just start talking about it. Shit.
Yeah.
All right, so Leprous, they just came out with an album called Pitfalls. And it is very, very interesting. If you go and look up some of the documentary stuff that they've been releasing for it and all that stuff, you'll very quickly learn that it's basically the lead singer's journey through depression and mental health and all that kind of stuff. Just having a really hard time and really using music as an outlet for those feelings and and using it as a device to take care of your issues and kind of outlet them in a healthy manner. And if you listen to the lyrics on the songs, which Leprous lyrics are always very, very meaningful for me, and Einar's his vocals are just absolutely stunning.
He's incredible. His vocal range is ridiculous. And before this album, what would you have called? But what subgenres would you say Leprous got into? Because I know that they get into a lot prior to this.
Good Lord. I mean, okay, so this is why I kind of preface this whole thing is they started off in the, I mean, they're very, very heavily influenced by Opeth, progressive death type stuff. They actually had low growls, and INR actually had some kind of mid-range growls. The low growls were taken care of by their guitar player, I believe. But they had very heavy and way more classically constructed and stuff like that songs, I feel like. And they've come a long ass ways. I mean, every album since then has progressed, kind of like Tool. You know, they never stay in the same sound. They always progress in some direction. It's still identifiable, but at the same time, it's always progressing, never staying the same. And they've gotten more and more and more and more progressive as it goes. And now, I mean, Melina, okay, if you like Leprous and you haven't heard this album, and maybe you haven't heard Melina, their last album, it's going to be jarring for you if, say, your favorite album from them is their first album or their second album, or even The Congregation. Like, The Congregation, they started kind of leaning to way more towards the progressive sound and kind of more complex compositions and stuff like that, kind of nuanced stuff. But even if you haven't listened to them since then, it's going to be quite a shift. So if you like them for that old sound, you might not like this album.
Yeah, I can see that, because I would be hard-pressed to even call this a metal album, to be honest with you. But there definitely is a lot of metal on this. It's just, they do so much on this, and he's got a very operatic vocal range. There's a lot of, piano, and I forget all the different sounds on here. I've given this one full listen through, and then I've been jamming what were the two songs that I think they're like the top two songs right now from the album.
Oh, probably Alleviate and Below.
Yep, those are the two.
Yeah.
I've really been liking those songs,
dude. So Below is like, I think, the first song they came out with, and it's a great, like, it pretty much segues from Melina right into this album almost seamlessly. It is quite I don't know. I guess it's kind of chill, I guess. Even Melina, some of the tracks on Melina are fairly upbeat, but compared to that, it starts off very slow. And Melina did the same thing. The opening track was very, it was a builder.
Yeah.
Definitely a builder. And that's something they do just almost like no other band, is they build a groove, they build tension slowly, very, very slowly, adding different elements and stuff. And what you're saying was absolutely true. The back half of this album actually incorporates a full orchestra symphony.
Yeah, I was thinking that it did, but I didn't want to say that and be wrong. But I do remember lots of symphonic instruments and some pretty long songs towards the end of this album.
Absolutely. All right, so there's one notable, very, very notable track on this, is that it is the one song that isn't actually written. Basically, some people have a criticism of this online, I've found, but I think it works. It has to be this way because it's Einar's, it's his album on his struggles, so he has basically written this entire album. It's as if maybe it's a solo album almost, but the rest of the band is always still supportive. There's some people are saying like, oh, well, he's trying to like cohort the band for himself or something like that. It's like, man, if the people didn't like what they were doing, they would have left the band.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think he held all of them at gunpoint and said write a fucking album.
No, and some people kind of had the criticism like Bard, their drummer, is an amazing drummer. He's got so much talent, but everybody in this band knows when to lay on their talent and when to just kind of keep the song together. It's not Dream Theater. Not everybody's not wanting to do a solo every goddamn minute. No,
but it's actually funny you bring up Dream Theater because I there's a lot of times on this album where I am reminded of Dream Theater, I would say.
Yeah, I think you've mentioned that before when we were just hanging out, fucking drinking and stuff. Is that like it's as if Dream Theater decided to go a different direction or whatever. It had the Dream Theater from Norway, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so but the one song I'm talking about is called Distant Bells, and that was actually composed by one of the other members. Forgive me, I can't remember which one off the top of my head. There's a documentary video about it actually, and his whole point to that song is to build tension in a minimalistic way. So it's not trying to overload your senses. Every last little crescendo of drums and every last little volume swell is put there for a reason. And it gives you a couple like kind of false goes, I suppose, where like there's a drum crescendo and you're like, oh, this is it. This is where it's going to drop. You know, it's going to get crazy right here. And then it just cancels out and it goes into the next part and keeps building your tension. And it's a long song. It's like 7 minutes. And by the time it hits the end and it actually gets into the end, you are just fucking blown away. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Just great songwriting. There's Alleviate and Blow are also great tracks. Alleviate is essentially a Eurovision pop song, not metal in any way.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's definitely parts of this album that are not metal at all. But I'm not saying that to knock it. Like, I highly recommend this album. By the time I was done with it, I was blown away, honestly, by how much I liked it.
And this is coming from a guy that listens to a lot of OG death metal, folks.
Oh, yeah. And which we'll be getting into later in the episode. As well as, actually, right now, if you don't mind, I got an album for us that came out in October. Or did you have anything else on Leprous?
Listen to it.
Listen to it. That's good advice right there. At the beginning of October, we got a new album from Exhumed. And when I heard it, I think I texted Neil, when did Exhumed become a grindcore band or something like that? Like,
I remember that.
They've always had obvious like gore grind influence. I mean, they literally got their name from Carcass, from Exhumed to Consume. They've credited Carcass with, and there's a lot of obvious influence from old Carcass scattered throughout Exhumed, especially their early catalog. This album is just 15 tracks of like gore splattered grindcore. It's not a straight up grindcore album, I would say, but this is the closest Exhumed has ever been to being grindcore for sure. There's a lot of songs on here that just are straight up grindcore songs. Lots of songs that are under 2 minutes or under 3 minutes with, you know, very grindy blasting drums and fast riffs. It honestly surprised me whenever I heard it. I was not expecting Exhumed to just go full grind like that. But man, did I really enjoy it. And how can you not love a song called Naked, Screaming, and Covered in Blood?
I mean, that's what I do on my weekends.
That sounds like a good weekend to me. Or just a good time in the pit.
Dude, that was almost me in King Cannibal Corpse's pit. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I've still got bruises on both arms from that pit.
Yeah, I got... Oh, no, it's gone now, almost. I had this fucking guy almost, like, manhandled me. Like, a guy probably had 50 pounds on me, just tried to pick me up and throw me in the pit twice. And I had his fucking monkey paw bruised on my arm from him digging into my fucking flesh.
Yeah, you get some extreme people at Cannibal Corpse shows.
Well, he almost got an extreme elbow to his fucking face.
I wish he would have.
Oh.
I wish he would have. Fuck him. It wasn't worth it. But this Exhumed album, man, God, I don't know what to say. Like, there's not a lot to say, honestly. Just like how this album kind of just comes in blazing fast and leaves as quickly as it came. I mean, it's barely 26 minutes in length.
Jesus.
It's 15 tracks.
That is a fucking grind album.
Yeah. Plus, there's another version with 2 bonus tracks as well that are both fantastic.
That's interesting because sometimes bonus tracks are like kind of poopy, like leftovers.
Right? But on this one, if you're familiar with the type of vocals that Exhumed does, they've got their higher vocals, and then their deeper, real guttural, like the Carcass Worship, where, you know, Jeff does the higher screaming vocals and Bill did the lower, not guttural, but just real deep vocals. Exhumed definitely took that from Carcass and ran with it, and they've done it throughout their whole discography. The bonus tracks from this album is just like the low vocals, which is not typical for Exhumed, but it was really badass. So I recommend actually listening to the version that's on Spotify and probably most of the streaming services that has the bonus tracks on it. But yeah, most of these tracks are pretty similar grind or death grind. It's just good stuff, man. If you're familiar with Exhumed's other stuff, just picture that, but grindier and a little faster, I would say, honestly.
So if not fans of Carcass and Exhumed, what else would you say that other fans of?
Older, Cattle Decap, Hemorrhage, I mean, the County Medical Examiners, those are... Jesus. If you're familiar with that band, then you know your death grind. If you're not, you should be. It's a bunch of actual, like, doctors in a
grind?
In a Carcass worship band.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So any general surgery, any of those kind of bands, if you like that kind of stuff, Impetigo, listen to this Exhumed album. You will like it.
Fucking alright. You want to left field this shit out into Alcest now?
Wait, last thing I gotta say. That Exhumed album is currently my album of the month.
Oh, dang. Okay.
I like it.
That's in this month. That is saying something.
Yep.
Definitely. Because I think, I'm fucking split so hard on whether I like the Alcest album more or the Leprous album more. I have an extensive history with both of these bands, and they both just fucking hit me with the wombo combo of the fucking year.
Yeah. I mean, you've been hyping this to me for a while, that this was like your Friday you've been looking forward to.
Yeah, and then the funny thing is that I thought they were dropping on different Fridays. I thought Alcest came out the Friday before Leprous. And then so I woke up that day, I'm like, all right, fucking time to jam it. It doesn't come out till next Friday. Son of a bitch. But that same Friday, I actually fucking saw Tool. So, I mean, shit, that was still a good Friday.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So if you have history with Alcest, I would say that this new Alcest album is 100% right in the fucking direction that you thought they were going to go from Kodama.
Have they always had this similar kind of sound? Because I'm not familiar with their whole discography.
No, actually, from the beginning, I would say the beginning of the discography sounds more like the last two albums. They Niche had kind of, it's a 2-man project. I'm not sure if you're aware.
I didn't know that.
It's just him and the drummer. And Niche plays all the guitar and bass on the albums.
What would you call this album? Like melodic black metal, but it also has clean vocals.
Yeah. I mean, I think Alcest is literally the definition of black gaze to me.
Yeah. You know what? That's more accurate.
It's exactly what you imagine black gaze to be whenever you think of black gaze. I guess some people might say Deaf Heaven might be a forefront in that too.
They're just the most popular.
I mean,
answer to that.
The fact that people hate Deaf Heaven because they're popular, fucking, like, okay, look, man, you can't jerk off to Sunbather one week and then hate it the next, all right? Like, you just don't get to do that. Just because they got popular doesn't mean they're fucking bad. God damn it. And their new album, by the way, that dropped last year, was it?
I think that was last year.
Yeah, Ordinary Corrupt Human Love. Fucking good. Also, pick that up. Shit. But anyways,
for fans of Alcest.
Absolutely. I would imagine anybody that knows Alcest. Although, I would say Alcest is way more digestible than Deaf Heaven. Deaf Heaven is definitely way faster and way more aggressive. It has moments of kind of clarity, but nothing to the degree of Alcest. But yeah, to answer your question, the beginning of Alcest's discography was very much like this sound. Maybe not as refined to a little bit. Niche has always been an amazing songwriter and vocalist.
How old is this band?
Oh, I believe they started in the 90s. I want to say late 90s or early 2000s.
We can fact check things.
Yeah, we're sitting in front of a computer. Yeah. Why don't you just type it on in there? But yeah, So they started. I mean, they're French. I'm not sure if you know that, but yeah, they're a French band. And I actually got the chance to meet Niche just very briefly when they played at Terrorfest. And
Oh, really?
all I did was just shake his hand and tell him, "Thank you." Just fucking thank you. I don't think that's everything that's on there. If you look on there, it just said they're active from '99 on. There's actually a few different EPs and stuff like that, demos and stuff. And I'm not going to do this band any kind of disservices by trying to pronounce anything because, yeah, I'm a typical American. I speak English.
Les Secrets.
Yeah, no shit, dude. But yeah, so the early stuff is kind of has some more of his screaming. He went into kind of like Shelter is kind of a poppy album actually. It doesn't. I don't think it has any screams. Maybe I'm just confusing that with another one, but it still has all of the kind of like groovy, chill atmosphere. However, Nige's scream, he has one scream. And he uses it to the utmost effect. It's not complex. It's one exact same scream the entire time. But every time he pulls it out, you are fucking floored by just the emotion that he puts into it.
If you're gonna be a one-trick pony on your screams, you better be damn good at it.
Yeah.
So,
actually, you know that guy I've been sending you that's doing the reaction videos, the Kardashev vocalists. That did like the cattle decap and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But shout out to that guy. Dude, his videos are amazing. He's a big fan of Alcest, and he always finds a way to mention them, I suppose. But he says, and it's something that I guess maybe I just didn't know the words to put to it, is that Nige's scream is simple, but it is emotionally honest. Where I feel like that is the perfect way to describe it. It's a black metal shriek, but it's as if he's singing about the loss of his soul or something. It's just so fucking emotional.
I know what you mean. There's a difference when you can hear a lot of emotion and then someone who's just, kind of wailing or, going through, maybe it's proper technique, but, I think you can do proper technique in vocals and still be missing, the emotion or an extra, little something behind it.
Yeah, I guess the fact that he's the kind of one of two songwriters and composers, helps. But yeah, there's some standout tracks on this album. And to say that I am a pro opinion on this album, it just came out last Friday, is silly. I know that it's great, and I know it's going to get even better as I listen to it.
But you have a standout track right now, right?
Dude, okay.
In one?
As soon as Protection dropped as a single, I was like, this is the most fucking fire Alcest song I've heard in the longest. And just from a composition standpoint, it comes out hard and heavy, which is not traditional for Alcest. There's a few songs that come out like that a little bit, but this one is... The tone is set immediately as heavy and just, it's just emotional. And then it builds, and then it drops into the first verse and stuff like that. But all the way through, it has just these amazing melodies, and then it goes into this thing. It does a verse and a chorus, and then it goes into this build where it kind of adds different elements. At one point, it's kind of like kind of the same riff as it was in the pre-verse, and then there's like a volume swell that you can listen to, like you can kind of isolate it to a degree if you're listening for it. That's building up in the background, and then the drummer eventually starts doing double kick, even though it's not triggered, so it's not like in your fucking face double kick. But if you listen to it, it's there, and then as soon as it drops, I know, tell me about it. It just ruins some albums.
Yep.
Especially the kick. If it's not the right kind of trigger and it's mixed and too slappy. Well, anyways, yeah. So, anyways, they're just building on this track, and then it drops into this crazy fucking scream from Niche. it just blows me away every time I get to that part of the song. And that's not even the best part. Like, it is the apex of the song for sure. But at the end of the song, it goes into this super melodic, chill vocal melody almost. It's la 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 or some shit like that. I'm not a vocalist. But it's just a vocal melody and then some drums kind of ticking away in the background. But then from there goes in, the guitar starts to pick up that same melody, and it's beautiful. It's just fucking beautiful.
And I would like to get to the point where we have samples on this podcast at some point so that we can actually play some of this stuff for you guys. But here on the first episode, we're not quite that prepared. So just know in the future that is coming so we can show you guys what we're talking about.
Yeah, honestly, it might do more service to what we're talking about to actually play clips than us fucking dumbasses talking about it.
Or we could, just sing the instruments and stuff like we...
Hey, it works.
Like most people do all the time, just mouthing their favorite guitar riffs,
It's weird the way some people do it, because when I would say I would do it try to da-da-da-da-da a song or whatever, and some people pick up different fucking melodies entirely.
I do it differently, like if there's a lot of distortion or not. Like I don't know. And I've never given it any thought, like before I do it. I just start doing it and I'm like, why was that my instinct to do that like that, to make that sound?
I don't know, I play fucking video games with this guy from Jersey or some shit, and every time he does, like, his favorite band of all time is Iron Maiden, and every time he'll like pick a song from Iron Maiden to, like, if he was gonna do the Trooper, he would do something fucking weird, and I would definitely recognize the song, but I'd be like, that's what you chose to like mouth of that song? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Anyways, tangential. So yeah, the Alcest's new album is phenomenal, fucking phenomenal, and it's gonna take multiple listens, as most Alcest albums do. But right from the get-go, I would say this is maybe their most easily digestible album from front to back.
I'm not done listening to it yet, but what I've heard, I've really thoroughly enjoyed. Or maybe I did finish it. I can't remember. I may have been fucked up or something when I was listening to it.
No way. Say it ain't so.
Yeah, entirely possible. So, Alcest, coming highly recommended from Neil. Is it the album of October?
Oh, God, dude, that's too hard of a fucking question. With such a stacked month, I have 2 other albums from 2 of my other fucking almost favorite bands of all time as well. And I haven't got enough time to really get into those albums either, so it's just not fair.
October's been good to us. Especially, I would say, like, there's been some good death metal this month. Another one that you sent to me was Coffin Rot. These guys, I don't remember where they're from, but this is their first album.
Is it their fucking debut?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god!
They have this in a demo tape, and it's pretty good. The only thing I'm gonna say though is, after listening to it a couple of times, I gotta say that the vocalist is not keeping up with what everyone else is offering on this album. This is some really old school death metal sounding goodness right here, with some good heavy chugging riffs on some parts. I'm drawing a blank on what this is. More like European style death metal, and I don't think these guys are from the States, so maybe that makes sense in that regard.
I have no reference. Like, if you would talk to me about, Norwegian black metal, I have like an immediate reference, but like what else would you say is European death metal?
Okay, so just maybe it would be easier to say, like, the Florida death metal scene, was Death, Morbid Angel, Deicide, a lot of Cannibal Corpse's discography, except they
come from fucking Florida.
Well, Cannibal moved there eventually, but Florida was chock full of old school death metal bands. Obituary. I mean, Florida was big, and there's a certain sound that I would say all of those bands share a little bit, and you can tell to me that they all come from Florida.
Nice.
Whereas, man, I'm drawing a blank on some of the European death metal bands that I'm trying to think of right now, or like Nocturnus. Carcass was from over there as well. There was a different Grave. There was different sounding death metal that came from, and even like different individual countries, have different sounds to them as well. That when we get to individual European countries and their distinct death metal sounds from like old school, I'm not as good back then. Demigod was another band. I know all these bands are from Europe. I just can't remember which individual countries.
I mean, there's a fuck ton of them over there,
dude.
So.
There's a lot, and I'm missing a lot. I'm sure people listening to this would be pissed. Like, how can you not name this band and this band? I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. There's a lot more that I know and that I'm a fan of. I'm just drawing a blank at the moment. But
my bad.
This, I would say, shares a sound with those types of bands more than like the American old school death metal. But I really feel like the vocalist is what's holding this album back from being really good. But one thing I gotta say, the last track on the album, their self-titled track, Coffin Rot, dude, that's a banger. That's a fucking banger. Like, nice. Open up the fucking circle pits. That is a good song. So if you check out this Coffin Rot album, if you're a fan of like old school death metal, I do recommend listening to it. But it's not, to me, it's not going to win any awards. But I've seen it getting talked about, on some different websites. Some people are reviewing it. It's starting to gain some traction and a little attention. So just wanted to put my 2 cents in on it to say I think it's being a little bit overrated, to be honest with you. But only because of the vocals.
Well, hey, man. If they come that hard on their debut, then...
I was gonna say
good things.
Yeah, I mean I think this band can only go up from this point. Like, this is a good debut. So I'm probably being too hard on it because it is a debut album.
Well, it's gonna do one of the two things, right? They're gonna do one of the two stereotypical things is they either like basically spent their load and their sophomore album will be shit, or it'll get better.
Yeah. Okay. Entombed and Entrails, those kind of bands like that. That's what this reminds me of.
Fuck yeah. I sent you that, and then still I'm not like drawing an actual mental reference of what it sounded like.
Well,
I knew enough to send it to you. There you go.
Death metal's my favorite, not yours. But you did, you had a good ear for it. You heard it and you knew it was good. So
that's usually what happens. Is I'm like, hey, yeah, this is some fucking choice shit. And yeah, it's not something I'd spin all the time, but I know I gotta send it over to my buddy. It's
definitely a band. It's an album worth checking out, but I would say even more so, this is a band worth keeping up with because I think we're gonna get something even better on their sophomore release.
Fuck yeah!
So Coffin Rot. God, I can't remember the name of the album right off the top of my head.
Wow, you guys can look it up. Fucking,
yeah.
We're not here.
Go look up Coffin Rot's debut album.
We're not here to do all your goddamn work for you.
I maybe we are supposed to.
All right, it's called A Monument to the Dead.
A monument. Yeah, I knew it was something like that, dude. The album art for that.
It's fucking sick.
It's like zombies cutting each other up or something.
Death metal.
Yeah, pretty death metal.
All right.
So I've offered up some death metal for the month.
How about some melodic death metal?
Ooh,
I got two melodic death metals. And this is another one of my favorite bands of all fucking time. And we were just looking at their fucking discography on the Encyclopedia of All Things Metal.
Yes.
A very useful website. Insomnium. Fuck. They don't stop. They're fucking machines. And this is, God, I think their 9th studio album or something like that. It's ridiculous. Heart Like a Grave is what it's called. I have not... Okay, I know it's good. I know it's going to be as good as pretty much every other Insomnium album to some extent, but it's throwing me off because the last album they did was a concept album. Yeah, every song ran together. Winter's Gate. So coming from that kind of structure to this album, it's throwing me off fucking hard. So I haven't got to spin this as many times as I'd like to. I'm definitely going to as soon as I can detach myself from Alcest and Leprous. But I know it's fucking amazing. I think the song that comes off... Okay, so Insomnium always does this thing where they have like an intro setup track. This one is actually more of like a traditional song. Sometimes they're just instrumental building tracks. But it's Valediction is the name of the song, like the first song. And it's definitely one of their more diverse sounds that they've done. And they've kind of been slowly creeping towards this. They didn't used to do clean vocals really at all. And then the album that had like Where the Last Wave Broke and stuff like that. Let's look it up right quick. I think it's Cross the Dark. Yeah, Down with the Sun and Where the Last Wave Broke. Kind of started really leaning on some more of the clean vocals and some of the choruses and stuff. And really, I mean, I liked them before, but that ever since they started doing that has just been amazing.
Is it... So I'm not as familiar with Insomnium as I should be. Is what kind of clean vocals would you say? Like who does he sound like? What kind of style?
Oh shit.
Because when I think clean vocals in melodic death, I think of Christian from Scar Symmetry and Solution 45.
Not
that dude's the man. I fucking love that guy.
He's diverse as fuck.
Yeah,
he can pull off so many different sounds. It's definitely not as high of a register. It's definitely a little bit more of a... I'm forgetting what the actual words are for like the tenor and bass and all the different types of vocal styles or whatever, wherever your voice falls into. You
would lose me in that conversation.
Anyways, I'd say it's... I'm off the top of my head, I'm not finding a vocalist that really fits that style. I wish we could play a clip for y'all. We're definitely gonna figure that shit out soon.
We'll get the clips at some point, guys.
But yeah, it's kind of just a middle range, I suppose. It's not very high up in the register by any means. Honestly, if you could think of a voice to go along with the melodic death metal that's not too grating and not too out of place, I feel like the guy's perfect.
Which it's funny to hear you say that it's not really like in the higher range, because like I said, when I think of clean vocals in melodic death, like Soilwork as well. That dude, what's his name?
Speed. What's his nickname is Speed, but what's his actual fucking Sven or some shit?
I forget. Yeah, probably too hard for me to pronounce, anyways. I think of vocals like that. So I think I need to do some more listening to Insomnium.
Pretty much anything you pick out of their discography is going to be great. I think out of everything, I came in at Above the Weeping World, and maybe it was since the day it all came down. I can't remember. One of those two. I remember my bandmates kind of getting on me because they felt like they were like Opeth clones or something. Just because they had some of the same types of riffs or elements, and I was like, nah, y'all are fucking crazy. But yeah, I love Winter's Gate. Winter's Gate is it's a concept album that doesn't linger on too long, and every song really kind of complements the last, and it has a constant theme and especially a vocal melody that kind of comes back. I highly recommend that one. But you really can't go wrong with any of these albums, really. So
they're pretty much just continuing right along with a very highly regarded discography. I see, yeah. I mean, if you're looking here on Encyclopedia Metallum, everything by them is rated very highly. Their worst rated albums at 83%. Like,
and that's 11 reviews each.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's just one dude.
Insomnium seems to be pretty consistent all the way through, and this one doesn't seem to change that, huh?
Nope. They are one of the most consistent melodic death metal bands there are, as far as I'm concerned.
So you've got one more album for us?
Yep. Also melodic death. But I sent them to you, and they weren't. Well, I don't know. You weren't in love with it, but at the same time, I don't think it was against you by any means. They're, I would say, a more progressive and long-winded band called In Mourning. And they actually came up on my radar quite a while ago with the album Monolith. But now they actually just came out with an album called Garden of Storms. And again, I've listened to it probably twice through, I believe. And I know it's them even more so getting into their own sound. There's probably a few different bands that maybe, I mean, these guys have been going on for a while, but at the same time, I can see how you might say that they're very heavily influenced by some of the other melodic death metal bands that are out there, or progressive death. Bellacore is on here, Barren Earth, In Vain. In Vain is actually I would say that my mind probably lumps In Vain and In Mourning almost the same, even though they have way different sounds in melodic death.
These are their similar artists on Encyclopedia Metallum that he was talking about there. There's quite the variety in here for this band. Opeth, Bellacore, Insomnium, Barren Earth, In Vain, Swallow the Sun, October Tide, Edge of Sanity. So lots of melodic bands and lots of progressive bands. And Obliviscaris, we go a little bit further down.
It's amazing though. Just look at that the breakup of countries in that. It's like Australia or Finland or Norway or Sweden.
Yeah.
It's like two distinct parts of the fucking world, because Bellacore is also from Australia. Just melodic death metal's in the water over there, guys.
Yep.
But yeah, again, I've listened to this band for quite some time. I highly recommend their entire discography again. I think Afterglow was maybe not the best album from them. It was a little bit of a lull, maybe. But I feel like they kind of hit their a new stride in this one to find their own little niche of melodic death metal.
I noticed all the songs on this album are pretty long.
Yeah, and that was actually your biggest criticism against them, was that you felt like the longer song format was a little bit trying.
It's hard for me to pull that off with most melodic death metal, I'd say, and most death metal in general. Like, it's just not a subgenre to me that lends itself very well to a longer song structure, at least on a regular basis. You know, I do like when bands have one-off or a couple of long songs per album, but it's, I don't know, maybe I need to listen to this again, but to me it's just hard for me to get behind that, I would say.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance in their songs, and almost, I'd say they actually do have a little bit of a typical song structure where sometimes they'll have really interesting breakdowns, and that's kind of not something you hear a lot in melodic death metal, but they pull it off. They definitely pull it off. But then they also have clean vocals as well, and actually are fairly similar to Insomnium's in that same kind of vocal register. But they're not afraid to slow it down. They are not afraid to slow it down at all. In particular, from The Weight of Oceans is a song called Celestial Tear, and that song is super slow and almost doomy. It's cool, but I can't, off the top of my head, think of any songs that are like that on this album. Like I said, I've only got maybe one or two listens through on it, but I know it's good. I just need to sit down. There's been too much in October, man.
Oh yeah, but I mean, you've probably listened to quite a few new albums this month, huh?
Oh God.
So if this one is, sticking out above the others, even with just only a listen or two, it must be pretty good.
I expected it to be, though. So this month is just fucking chock full, and this came out in the beginning of the month, October 4th. So
Yeah.
Shame on me for not having listened to it more, but
Dude, there's so much. There's so much to listen to. I wanted to get that new Mayhem album fully prepared to give some actual notes and thoughts on it, but I've only gotten through probably most of it, I would say. But
yeah, same.
It was really good.
Yeah, I think I've listened to it mostly all the way through once.
I was not expecting that.
Yeah, the weird thing about Mayhem is that it's different than other black metal bands, maybe in the sense that every album is distinctively different, and they'll exhaust a sound. Like, they'll pick a sound, they'll pick a feel, and they'll just exhaust the shit out of it. It doesn't, like, this album I feel like is kind of one of their more, I'm not a Mayhem pro by any means, but I feel like this is one of their kind of slower paced albums to some degree. It just feels heavy and dark, extra heavy and dark.
Yeah.
There's one song in particular that I don't know the name of, but it starts off super chunky and just fucking good.
I think I heard that one. Like I said, I haven't even finished one full listen on it yet, but so far what I heard I liked.
Same.
So what was there anything else? You got any other stuff you want to shout out for the month of October?
Yeah, I definitely have some honorable mentions. There was a death metal band that we just played one track from called Xoth, Xoth, that actually just won Album of the Month over at a website called Angry Metal Guy, which is a fantastic review site that some of the reviewers can get a little bit pretentious, but by and large they shout out most quality music.
Yeah, and they do a lot of reviews.
A ton of different music.
Yeah.
And that I haven't got a whole lot into it, but like I had Justin put on a song right before we started recording this, and he shouted out that it kind of sounded like old Vector, and I actually kind of heard that once I put that together. Very interesting sound. I kind of heard some death in there as well.
Yeah. For sure. Some black metal and some death metal, and pretty technical and progressive. Like, there's just a lot going on in that.
Yeah.
I would say it also kind of reminded me of, not for the vocals, but for the music, Inanimate Existence.
Ooh, yeah, good one. Definitely. I hear that now, actually.
If you're not familiar with that band, you should be. Shout out to those guys.
Yeah, there's definitely some tech death-ish type stuff in there. Not super in the forefront, but yeah, definitely the feels. I think maybe two other things. This is a super honorable mention because, again, it came out super late September. But it's a black metal group. I don't even know how to say the name. It's spelled IATT. Yet, I don't know. I don't know if that stands for something.
I don't know.
Fuck if I know. But it's a song or an album called Nomenclature, and it kind of reminds me a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if these guys are from Germany, to be honest.
You played me a song from that the other day when I was at your house. That shit was good.
Yeah, it's groovy. It kind of groovy in a for black metal, anyways. No, they're from fucking Philadelphia.
Philly.
They definitely don't sound like it. I give them that. And they're actually on tour with Elysian right now. Look at that.
Oh, really?
Elysian and Infury. Nice. They're actually going to be playing in Philadelphia on fucking Halloween.
Oh, damn. That would be fun.
Yeah,
if you're in the Philadelphia area, you should go to that.
Yeah, this is only their second album. I've listened to it maybe 3 or 4 times. And they have this listed as... Oh, apparently they have maybe an earlier discography of metalcore, but Black and Melodic Death Metal is their later one. Yeah, they have some EPs. I would say Black and Melodic Death Metal is probably fucking spot on.
Yeah, I would agree with that just from what I heard. Funny that they were metalcore earlier in their career. I guess they decided to change that up, huh?
Yeah, I could hear it. They definitely, I feel like, grew into the sound. It sounds as if they're kind of masters of this nuanced sound that they have, that they kind of, and I love it when bands do this, is they're able to establish a feel and a groove in a song and just kind of work their way in and out of it. There's parts of this album that it's just there's no vocals. It's just building on a riff. The drummer, I believe, is actually especially just amazing. It just throws in fills and little changes here and there to change the pace.
Paul Cole is his name. Shout out to that guy.
You're doing good work. But yeah, I mean, I feel like the more I listen to this, the more I'm gonna really like it. I think the second song, Realm of Dysrhythmia, is pretty good, and Molyneux's Problem, track number 4 is also good, and track number 6 is also pretty good, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce that Latin shit.
Osteogenesis Imperfecta?
There you go, buddy. You did it. I really like another band that has a Latin name, you know? I should be ashamed of myself.
This album's almost an hour long, and that's with these two are obviously instrumentals or just intro tracks.
Yeah.
Hijama and Pseudo Bulbar Effect. They're both about a minute and 15. So, I mean, take those two out, and we're left with 8 tracks at about 55 minutes. And this, see, that makes more sense to me. Is I like black metal longer like that, you know? So I need to do this album all the way through for sure, because I did like whichever song you played for me the other day.
Yeah, they have a lot of different sounds in this though too. They have the Uada Migla vocals where it's not like a scream but like a yell.
Yeah.
I don't know what to call it.
I heard the vocals from Aguad described one time as desperate.
Yeah. It's like a desperate wail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought
it's like
that
a
was
wailing fucking. Yeah.
An interesting way to put that, and I had to agree.
So yeah, they definitely have that kind of throughout the album. There's a couple little like sound snippets or like whatever samples.
Like samples.
Yeah, it kind of goes into the cheesy side every once in a while, but it's still well done. And then the last thing I think I'm going to shout out that I just actually remembered right now because we were looking up something on this website that reminded me of it. But it's a tech death band from Arizona called Singularity. They just dropped an album called Palace of Chains, and I think I sent it to you just in a YouTube video.
I think you did.
I don't know if it's on Spotify yet.
That name is sounding familiar.
They're a band that I've been listening to and kind of following for a while now. They're a symphonic tech death band with like it's kind of symphonic blackened tech death to a degree. It's definitely involved for tech death.
So maybe like some similarities to like Septic Flesh.
Not as orchestral. Or
orchestral.
Yeah, Jesus. Definitely not as orchestral, and not composed as like a symphony or a score at all. Because the guys from Septic Flesh, especially their guitar player, that I'm forgetting the name of off the top of my head, he's actually a composer. So their stuff is, and when it comes to songwriting, is actually super fucking awesome. But this is kind of more tech death with elements of symphonic and black metal. But their their keyboard player died, I think last year.
Oh shit!
So they've kind of been picking up the pieces from that. Their drummer actually drums in a lot of different bands. The tech death scene shares members like crazy. If you don't know, he's drummed for Alter Beast. He's now drumming live for blanking on their name all of a sudden. I just saw them. Anyways, he's been in a lot of different bands. I always try to go talk to him and see like what the fuck's going on with Nathan Bigelow.
Archaic? Is that who you're trying to think of?
Yep, that's it. I guess he's actually a member of it. It doesn't say he's actually just a live member.
Maybe he joined full time.
Maybe, but he fucking puts it down, man. He's always super solid live.
Look, the singer / bassist also played with Archaic.
Like I said, they share members like crazy.
Yep.
Even the singer for Alter Beast is now the old singer. They got their original singer back, so they went from one guy to another dude that I saw with them a few times, and then now he's not in the band, and he was actually filling in for Equipoise, that band I really wanted to go to. That you weren't there that night. They played with Beyond Creation, and Beyond Creation actually has their bass player is in that band. So again, another fucking.
I think they have to because they're the only ones who can play each other's songs.
Yeah, I guess so. Just fucking technical ass shit. Yeah, so I really want it. They have a song. That band I don't think they released anything this month, but they have a song called "The Suit of My Flesh." Go listen to it. It's fucking ridiculous.
Shout out to that song.
But yeah, these guys are young, and I've seen them once before with Veil of Nath, and they fucking put it down. They're probably going to be touring again soon. I believe Nathan said they were going to be here actually in December, but I haven't seen anything officially announced yet.
That's such a tech death album art.
Yeah, it's like a fucking robot.
Like fighting arena or something. Is that like a crowd up there?
That's what it looks like, yeah.
If you look at this Singularity album, Place of Chains, and look at this album art so you know what we're talking about. It looks like robots like fighting in an arena or something.
Yeah.
Or men in armor. I can't even quite tell.
And I think a standout track on this one, if I remember right, is 7 or 8, which is Serpent's Eternal or Dead Receptors. It's one of those two. There's some really good groove in there at some point, but I need to listen to it more.
Well, shit, man. There was a lot of good stuff in October. And, I mean, we barely scratched the surface, honestly.
Yeah.
There's a lot to get to. But that's some highlights from the month, at least. Like, those, pretty much everything we talked about comes recommended.
Absolutely. And it's stuff I'm going to be spinning. Oh, yeah. Ginger came out with an album this month as well, last Friday as well. I honestly don't want to say that much about it other than it's just Ginger.
Yeah.
That's all I can really say.
If you're a Ginger fan, then I guess you're going to like it. I'm not really familiar with Ginger, to be honest with you, so...
Yeah, I saw them live.
Yeah. I was at that show, too.
Oh, it was, shit, were you there? Yeah, you were there. That's right.
It was packed. It was way too packed.
Yeah, no shit. They put on a good show. But alright, man. That's fucking October, guys.
That's October metal releases. So you don't have a favorite? You don't want to pick a favorite here, right now? If you've had to pick?
Leprous.
There we go. Leprous. Album of the month.
And that's like literally by the skin of its teeth over Alcest. Like
back and forth.
Yes.
Those two, and I'm throwing in Exhumed for a third. That album's called Horror, by the way. It just looks like an 80s like movie poster or something on the cover art for that. I love it. So, how long are we in? 58 minutes?
Yeah, that's it.
Perfect.
Here we go, guys.
All right. So, want to take you guys back to the year 1988. Broken Hope begins in Chicago, Illinois. And when they first started, they didn't put anything out for 3 years until Swamped and Gore in 1991. And our original lineup was Jeremy Wagner. And I just got to say, this dude is the man of Broken Hope, by the way. Jeremy Wagner. You need to just remember that name for the rest of this discussion on this band. He's the rhythm guitarist, and he's the only consistent member all the way through. This band's had quite a few lineup changes. I need to go to Swamped and Gore. So our original lineup is Jeremy Wagner on rhythm guitar, Joe Tasic, I'm not sure how to say his name, on vocals, Brian Griffin on lead guitar, Ed Hughes on bass, and Ryan Stanek on drums. And fun fact about the first Broken Hope album, Swamped and Gore, it is the first death metal album to be recorded digitally.
No shit.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, that started with Broken Hope on Swamped and Gore. What do you think about this album art for this first album.
It looks like an old Sega game cover or something.
Look this up when you guys get a chance for the Swamped and Gore, the original album art, because later they get on Metal Blade Records and do a reissue with a different album art that's better. But this first one is like, in the background we've got like a checkerboard.
Yeah,
it's just a flaming skull, 2 eyeballs floating around. It's just kind of messy and very dated for the early 90s, I would say. Which doesn't hold as much of its charm to me as like the 80s. The early 90s, some of that stuff didn't age as well.
No.
Including this album art. However, the music on Swamped and Gore, to me, has aged well. If you like... so, there's a couple different sounds going on this first Broken Hope album. There was obvious influences of grindcore on this album. There's some very grindy parts. I definitely would not call this a grindcore album by any means. It's definitely an old school death metal album, but there is, at least in some of the verses, mostly I would say, on a lot of these songs, they start with it really on Incinerated. They skip it for a bit and come back to it later on the album. Their most popular song, I would say is their most popular song, seems to be the one they're most well known for, is the title track from this one, Swamped and Gore. This, honestly, dude, is kind of like a proto-slam song, I would say. Yeah, this is some pretty brutal stuff for back in the day. And like I said, this came out in 1991, and just to give you an idea of what else was happening around this time in 1991, Cannibal Corpse put out Butchered at Birth. Dying Fetus was just getting started and becoming a band about this time. Who else was putting stuff out? Sinister was a little over a month away from putting out their first album. Deicide did not put it out that year. Malevolent Creation put out their first album in 91. Suffocation puts out Effigy of the Forgotten. So there's death metal is really taking off and getting more brutal, more down-tuned, more technical, more slamming, more everything than from where we came from even just a couple of years prior in 89 and 90 with, Death and Morbid Angel and bands like that getting it started. Broken Hope on their debut starts with, definitely I would say it's a brutal old school death metal release. It leans more towards I would say like Suffocation and some of those old brutal death metal bands back then. But there's also definitely some grindcore influence on some of these songs. So
how influenced grindcore, starting grindcore.
Yeah, I mean, their first label that they started on was Grindcore International.
There we
go. So that's how they got things kicked off. Then we go to 1993. They put out The Bowels of Repugnance, and this to me is
oh yeah, look at that,
possibly the low light in this band's discography, I will say. Oh, also, big drop in the time for the album. Swamped and Gore is almost 45 minutes long. The Bowels of Repugnance is just 31 minutes.
And more tracks.
And the reason for this is because they went a little more towards the grind sound than the previous album. And I think they must have got like a 3-album deal with Metal Blade Records, because this is their first album on Metal Blade. And their whole discography is not on Metal Blade, so we'll get to that. But this is their first one on Metal Blade. And yeah, the songs get shorter. There's more songs. And definitely... I mean, look at these song titles, dude. Coprophagia, She Came Out in Chunks.
Hobo Stew. Preacher
of Sodomy. Remember My Members. These guys were on point with the song titles. And the lineup does not change at all from one album to the next. Still got the same lineup for the Bowels of Repugnance. But honestly, this to me, here's my biggest problem with this album. The production somehow got worse from the previous one. And if you just look at the album art, it really doesn't make any sense. Like, this one looks like it looks very dated. The next one is like, okay, maybe there's some progress. Now they're on Metal Blade. Nope. The production gets worse. And this band is going to go through quite a few different subgenres throughout their discography. And I got to say, their grindiest album, which is this one, is definitely not where this band shines. Some people might disagree with me. I don't think that this is what this band does best. As you heard some of it as you got here. I was finishing up some of the albums whenever he got here, and you heard what this changes to later on.
It was impressive.
And yeah,
this is coming from a guy that doesn't listen to a fuck ton of death metal.
Yeah, and we'll get to it. But like I said, this was very grindy death metal, and this one definitely is their grindiest, and also I would say probably their worst album. It's still not bad. I wouldn't call it bad, but to me it was a step down from Swamped in Gore. And then we move on to 1995 with the Repulsive Conception album. Now I believe we see our first lineup change. We get Sean Glass on bass instead. And I don't know who decided that this band was going to just totally do a change in their sound. But somebody did, because when they go from the Bowels of Repugnance to this one, this is where the groove comes.
Hell yeah.
This is where it starts. And this band decided that they were going to get groovy with the death metal. They don't totally ditch all of the grind influence on this one, but it's dialed way back on this one. They definitely got rid of that and added the groove. And they're kind of coming into their sound of what would be, I think, their best run in their discography. This is kind of where it starts. They're not quite there yet, I would say. They're still trying to figure it out, but they are incorporating a lot of groove in the death metal on this one. And can we just talk about some of these lyrics? We were reading some lyrics earlier.
Fucking ridiculous.
This shit is ridiculous. I don't even particularly want to read it on this podcast. But yeah, this is some really disgusting, gory, vile stuff that if you're really into just how disgusting death metal can get, Broken Hope is right there with the most vile Chris Barnes vocals that he ever put out. I mean, man, what you read a lot of this and just go, what the fuck? I was going to be recommending some of my favorite tracks from each of these. So for the first one, I would definitely say Swamped in Gore. I really liked that one. Gorehog is also a really good one. And the closing track, Claustrophobic Agnostic Dead. The second one, nothing really stands out to me as recommended. If I'm making a Broken Hope playlist, I'm not really going to take anything from this one. You might listen to it and find something you like, but this one I can honestly pass without taking anything from it for the Broken Hope playlist. Repulsive Conception, though, there's a lot of songs that could make the Broken Hope playlist on this one. I really liked Engorged with Impiety, was really where I was like, okay, this is better than the last album by a long shot. Pitbull Grin. Some people might not like this one because it has these weird stops where then you do hear like a dog in the background. It's very like, if you like the sillier side of death metal that doesn't take itself too seriously, you'll probably really enjoy this track. I really liked this one. And then, what was the other one? Freezer Burnt. That was a really good song.
Not Penis Envy?
Penis Envy, dude. You read the lyrics for this one, it's so fucked up. This baby gets its dick cut off on accident, and it's because he writes this whole story about how the doctors are trying like some new laser technology for circumcision, and it goes wrong, and they accidentally cut the baby's dick off, which then grows up to become a woman, but still feels like they want to be a man, and then goes on to do some very bad things. It's a fucked up song.
Jesus.
Just like everything. And funny enough, they end with a Twisted Sister cover, Captain Howdy, on this album.
All right.
But if you didn't tell me that it was, I would not have known. This song fucking slams. There's, I would also say that there is definitely some signs of slam coming on this album as well. Not very much at all, but it's coming. You can tell. And especially if you know what's coming next, then it becomes more obvious. So we move on to 1997 with my favorite Broken Hope album, Loathing. We get...
That's the same lineup.
Yeah, no lineup changes here. All the same members as the last album. And they really double down on the grooves on this one. This, to me, is where this is them at their best. It's got grooves, it's got slams, it's got breakdowns, it's got everything that you love in, super heavy death metal. Honestly, it's hard to pick highlights on this one. Siamese Screams for sure. The opener is fantastic. The cloning is amazing. That one's making the playlist for sure. Skin is In. He Was Raped. Dude, this album is chock full of just one banger after another.
Full on change in album art and logo for sure.
Yeah, they decided to do a much cleaner logo on this one. They ditched their logo for some reason. Not really sure why. I'm still undecided on whether I like the album art or not. It's like a heart with like snakes and dragon heads and spikes, and it has a face, and it's just kind of floating in the middle of the desert or something. It's a weird... I don't know. What do you think of it? Do you like it?
It's conceptual, for sure. It's as if it's like these worms or snakes are parasites, kind of. Because they come out of arteries and stuff, so that's kind of cool. I don't know what the face is. No fucking idea.
I like the face, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm really torn on this one because it's interesting for sure. But as far as the songs, man, like I think I played Siamese Screams for you one time. I played something for you from this.
Whatever it was good. I need to dig through this discography.
Yeah, this to me, like I said, this is the quintessential Broken Hope album right here. And you look at 1997. What other like death metal was really popular back then? Death metal was kind of in a lull at this point. Yeah, because
it's true.
At this point it had gotten almost as brutal as it could get, as fast almost as it could get. Like obviously there's bands later that push the boundaries on those things, but not a lot of boundary pushing going on really at this point. But with this, like the groove that they brought into this, there was a lot of groove metal happening at this time. I mean,
Pantera was in there.
Pantera was in there. Machine Head was going. I think Burn the Priest was like just coming up.
Yeah,
at this point.
True.
So that was getting going, but this was the death groove metal or album right here. The death metal album with so much groove, man.
As a huge Pantera fan, I gotta say, I definitely picked up on that groove. This
guy's I don't want to say this guy. I want to pay the man some respect. Joe Tasic he's and we were talking about this earlier about being a one-trick pony. he's got a very deep guttural scream that he does very well, and he's able to use it to do some interesting lyric patterns. He's very fast on some of these songs. He's got a nice fast delivery when he wants to. So he is kind of a one-trick pony with his vocals, at least in the style that he does. But as far as the songwriting, he's on point. So just because he's only really got one sound doesn't mean he doesn't do it goddamn well. And it keeps the band interesting, even all the way through on all his albums. So we move on to 1999 with Grotesque Blessings. And a lot of these Broken Hope albums I hadn't heard until just doing research for this episode. And this was one of them. And I don't really know why. And I see the reviews on here are lower for this one than the previous one. I don't get that either. This album I thought was excellent. Necrophilatio, Christ Consumed, Internal Inferno. Dude, some of these songs were like, I don't remember which track had which parts on it, but there's some really stop and go. And this is, at this point, the stop and go grooves are almost at the point where this is more groove than death metal on this album. This is definitely the peak of how much groove they put on here, and just the way they structure most of their riffs. And I forgot to mention, really starting with, I would say, Repulsive Conception, 2 albums back, they got much better on guitar solos. Because the solos on the first 2 albums are kind of whack, honestly. They started doing much more interesting guitar solos from then on, and this album is no exception in that department. The guitar solos got better, the grooves got groovier, but the vocals have just not let up at all in the brutality all the way through their discography. This dude is brutal as fuck. But I didn't get bored with his vocals, even through all of the albums that he's on.
Nice. That says something.
Yeah. You didn't get to hear any of this, I don't think. Oh, no, you got to hear the end of this one.
Yeah, whatever it was when I came in was fucking banging.
Yeah. And like I was mentioning earlier about the stop and go, I don't know if that is obvious what I'm talking about when I say that, but it's like, it's unexpected that it will just like stop. Everybody stops, and then it's not for like a long pause, but it's used a lot, and it's part of the rhythm. The fact that there's going to be a stop and a pause for, a half a second or so, but then it goes right back into the heaviness, and it's always on some like banging, slamming riff. And like I said, it was obvious that there was some slam coming. Broken Hope is by no means a slam band, at least not yet.
We get there, don't worry.
Definitely much more groove and just straight up death metal than anything. But there's definitely some parts on throughout this trio of Repulsive Conception, Loathing, and Grotesque Blessings that I would definitely consider to be slam. Nice. For sure. So they had influence on that as well. These guys, I think, were probably influential on a lot of the really brutal bands who came after them. So shout out to these guys for sure. Now we come to the point where we get a long break in between Broken Hope albums. The band went on hiatus in 2001 and didn't come back until 2012. But sadly, while they were away on hiatus, in 2010, the singer, Mr. Joe Tasic, decided to end his own life by suicide from a gunshot. that really sucks that he got to that place. You hate to see that for any of these guys, and you wonder what he was going through. It's just such a waste of talent to me. This guy was incredible. So I don't know if that maybe had anything to do with the band getting back together. I would have to do a little bit more research to find that out. But I will say that he killed himself in January of 2010, and Broken Hope got back together in 2012, and with a new lineup. And we got Omen of Disease. Oh, also, little fun side note for everybody. If you remember Mr. Where'd he go? Ryan Stanek from earlier. He was kicked out of Broken Hope after Loathing because he was taking money for merchandise and then not sending it to fans. So,
dick.
Yeah, they were obviously unhappy with that and decided to remove him from the band. So yeah. We come back, though, in 2013. Broken Hope comes back with a new lineup in 2012 and puts out an album in 2013, Omen of Disease. And if the second album, Bowels of Repugnance, was the low light of this band, I would say this is probably the next worst album. But let me be clear, I don't think this was a bad album. Like, going through it earlier, it just seemed to get better and better as the songs went on. It did start off a little hard to get used to, especially when we just came from how groovy the 90s material was. It sounds
like a different band.
It sounds like a completely different band, and it pretty much is. Because now we've got Chuck Webfer on lead guitar, still Jeremy Wagner on the rhythm. Like I said, he's in all the way through. Sean Glass still on bass. Mike Mitchek? How would you say his name? I don't know.
That's probably right.
Miczek. So sorry if I butchered your name, man. But he's on drums. And then we got Damian Tom Lesky from Gorgasm, right? On vocals. Gorgasm, yeah. And he's still in Gorgasm, by the way. And it's very obvious. If you're familiar with Gorgasm, that becomes very obvious when you start this album. This is the closest this band ever gets to being Slam. This is, to me, they're probably their most brutal album. This shit is hard, man. This is similar to bands like Devourment, Defeated Sanity, like we just talked about Gorgasm. It's obvious that there was he had to have brought some influence when he joined the band, because these guys get brutal at this point, and it takes a little getting used to. And this is definitely not my favorite production on a Broken Hope album. I really like the production they had for those really groovy albums in the 90s. That probably wouldn't have worked for this, but there's definitely better produced brutal death albums than this one. That being said, there's still definitely some bangers on this one that you should be adding to your Broken Hope playlist. I liked Ghastly. Omen of Disease was awesome. By the way, just The Docking Dead.
Dude, I took a picture of those lyrics and sent them to some friends because I was like, this is the most fucking ridiculous shit I've ever read. It's exactly what you think. The Docking Dead.
Dude, the lyrics for pretty much all of Broken Hope's discography, I would say, is pretty much the soundtrack to a snuff film.
Sounds about right.
I mean, from what you've read, would you agree with that?
Oh yeah. I mean, shit. There's the next song is "Give Me the Bottom Half."
Yeah,
and it's exactly what you think.
Yeah, he just wants the bottom half of a dismembered woman for his fun. It's disgusting. Broken Hope has never let up on the vile, just most disgusting lyrics. and it's still like, good Lord, man. Even today, like reading this shit, I was not shocked, but just seeing some new creative topics in death metal. I give them an A for creativity on what we're writing about. It's just not your typical serial killer, I'm going out and killing people songs.
It's like, you want to put what in what?
Yeah, it was never even thought of before to put that in that, or to, oh god, there's a song on the second album called "Felching Vampires." We were reading the lyrics to that one earlier. Also, exactly what you think. The closing track, not Incinerated, the redo of, it's a redo from their first album. I'm talking about Choked Out and Castrated. That one also would make the Broken Hope playlist.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Once again, with these song titles, Choked Out and Castrated.
That's what I like to do when I get choked out. Just castrate the fuck out of me. Yeah.
Yeah. See, no misogyny here. We kill and dismember all genders in Broken Hope. So, Omen of Disease, like I said, not my favorite Broken Hope album, but definitely different from the rest of the discography in that it's the only one really that gets quite this brutal. And then we've got the latest one from 2017, Mutilated and Assimilated. We get another lineup change. We lose Mr. What was his name? Glass on bass?
Yeah, he was there almost since the first album, though.
Yeah. Diego Soria on bass now. And that's it for lineup changes.
You sure, Matt?
Oh, no, you're right. Matt.
Yeah, how do you pronounce that?
Where do they get all these names? Like, how many people with Z in your name can you have throughout your discography? Matt Slotta? I'm sorry, man. If he hears this, he's going to be like, you fucking mispronounced my name so badly. But shout out to him for his guitar skills, because this might be, and I know that I declared Loathing my favorite Broken Hope album earlier, but it actually might be this one. This one takes Omen of Disease and dials back the brutality just slightly, in a good way, because the production's better, the vocals are slightly more intelligible, because even with trying to follow with lyrics from Omen of Disease,
it was impossible.
It's impossible. Yeah.
I was picking out like one every 8 words or something, like just literally looking at the lyrics going, what?
Yeah. That's another reason that one, I would say, has a very slam feel to it. Just the completely unintelligible vocals. That's not to say that he's easy to understand on this one, but, just a little more. The songs on this one are just ridiculously good, man. The Meek Shall Inherit Shit. What a way to open the album, man. The Bunker. I mean, so many of these make the Broken Hope playlist. At
this point, I feel like you have to make a Broken Hope playlist and then share it to all of our non-audience that we don't have.
Yes. So that one day when they go back and listen to the first episode and see how horrible it was, they can be like, oh, look, the Broken Hope playlist. At least we got something good out of that, as well as your recommendations, because that's still going to hold up and, forever. Because those albums are going to be good. But, I mean, yeah, there's so much good stuff from this Outback Incest Clan. I mean, they never changed with the lyrics, man. And some people might say that that's not a good thing. They dialed back just slightly on the brutality, I would say, is with the lyrics, but the songs are still really good. And I would also got to say that at this point, at least several albums back, we've ditched the grind influences totally. There's, I want to say a little bit of it on this one, not a lot, but it was like a little bit. There was times where it was a little bit of a throwback to that. This was my first Broken Hope album, their latest one. So I haven't been a fan for a long time. And like I said, a lot of these were new to me in just preparation for this episode. But I've really gained a newfound respect for this band and what their influence was on the subgenre as a whole. Because it's obvious to me that the other bands, their peers who were writing this music as well back in the early 90s were definitely listening to this band. And bands who followed in the late 90s and early 2000s. Broken Hope was obviously influential on them. And I'm really glad to see him now come back with, another killer lineup that, obviously isn't the old stuff. And we'll never, be able to hear from Mr. Tosic again since he did commit suicide. But the Gorgasm singer, Damian Lesky, he's doing a very good job for this band, for sure. And it's not, you can't go into the newer stuff thinking that it's going to sound like the old stuff and vice versa. This is definitely going to be, when it's all said and done for this band, two very different discographies. Even with the old stuff, like I said, the first two albums, there's lots of grindcore on it, and then we get groove metal, groovy death metal for 3 albums for sure. Owen of Disease brought us a lot of slam and brutal death, and really it's the only album in the whole discography like it. And they've kind of found a really good place with Mutilated and Assimilated. And as of this podcast, that's where this band stands with their latest release. And I think it's going to be hard to top this one, but whatever they put out next is going to be really good as well. So if you guys were not familiar with Broken Hope before, hopefully I've made you want to go check them out. And really, if you like death metal, I think that there's something in here for pretty much anybody who likes death metal. Like you seem to really like the groovy death stuff.
That's my shit, man.
I'm a fan of all the different styles they do because I'm a death metal junkie. But, not everyone is. But Broken Hope definitely has something for everyone who likes death metal. So, that's my spiel on Broken Hope, guys. So, please check them out. They definitely deserve more attention. They have been around as long as all of your favorite death metal bands. All the old school guys, they just don't get the recognition that some of the other bands do. Well, what do you think, Neil? You want to listen to Broken Hope now that I've given that spiel?
I'm definitely going to jam some of the groovier stuff that caught my ear whenever I was coming in.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I'm going to make that playlist for sure. And so maybe you can... there's going to be a lot of the groovy death stuff on it. Because like I said, Repulsive Conception, Loathing, and Grotesque Blessings. That's their, to me, like... what do you call it when it's like back to back to back? Like the...
Trio?
Yeah, but that's not the word I'm trying to think of. But like... Anyway, that's... If you had to go like albums in a row back to back, that's their like highlight part of their discography for sure.
Nice.
Mutilated and Assimilated might be their best, but that's just my opinion.
That's for you to judge, man.
Yeah, that's for everyone else to judge when they listen.
Well, all right, man. I guess we're going to be back middle of November.
We should be back the middle of November with some good shit coming out in November. And I'm not going to tell you who I'm covering on the next episode, but look for something a little more power metal or heavy metal.
You do send me some traditional heavy metal.
Yeah, we're going to take a total left turn from Broken Hope on the next episode. So make sure you come back for that one.
All right, guys. Have a good one. Signing off.